Bank of Canada raised interest rates yesterday. And
Yeah. And
again, they hit us again.
they said they weren't going to.
They promised us 1 year
Yeah.
with no interest rate hikes. Son of a
Sneaky little.
Yeah, it was very sneaky. So they hit us with a 0.25% interest rate yesterday, and they've promised another 0.25% going up in the next quarter. So we're gonna have two interest rate hikes again, despite the fact that at the beginning of the year they said no more.
Yeah. And things were just starting to heat up here in Victoria. Sales were,
Yeah.
for the first month, we met last year's projections or last year's numbers. And we'll see what this does.
Yeah. What do you think's gonna happen?
I think we'll have a little bit of a blip, maybe, with people want to use their set rate that they've got from their banks.
Yes.
Buy before the next one goes up.
Yeah, that's what I think too. So I think we're gonna have a blip. Okay, this is my prediction. So in 6 months, let me know if I was right or not. But basically, I think we're gonna have all the people that just got their interest rate holds for the next 120 days. If they're motivated and they're serious and they have a genuine kind of reason to move, I think we're going to want to see that. I think they're going to want to get a place locked in before they lose the rate that they had. And then I think we're going to see a wave of people that want to get into something before the next interest rate hike happens, because we know it's coming now, right? So we have, another, say, 90 days of this current rate before it goes up again. So I think we're going to have a little bit of spurred activity as a result. And then who knows, after that second hike, it might cool back off again like it did last time. So
this also means that we might have to delay moving in with your mom. Oh, no.
Stop. Stop bringing that up, will you? I think that we should. So my prediction is this: spurred activity in the short term, I'd say for the next 4 to 6 months, and then a cool off, which we're going to be going into Christmas anyway, so it's going to be hard to tell. But that's my prediction.
Great. What have we got going on? What are we gonna be talking about today? Today we're gonna be doing a bad inspector topic. This isn't a bad inspection. We've had lots of bad house inspections, but this is about when the
and bad house inspections are a part of it. That's not, some houses are bad.
But this is about the inspectors themselves.
Yeah.
Because we've gone through a lot of inspectors. Most of them have been pretty positive experiences, but we're going to highlight some of the ones that were dreadful for various reasons.
Yes, because that's the name of the podcast. All things dreadful is what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the overarching point is that you could be a great inspector and know everything there is to know about, your roof trusses and your soffits, and that really sometimes doesn't matter if you can't talk to humans. And it's part of the job. If you're killing every realtor's deal that they bring you for minor things, then you're not good at your job, even though you could be really good at your job, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're talking about bedside manner a little bit here. This inspection, I know the one you're talking about, and we're going to get into it, but this inspection was bad for other reasons.
He was also bad at his inspecting job, yeah.
Yeah, but bedside manner in an inspector, that's pretty important.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, they're given a mini presentation every time they're meeting with clients who they don't know. So they have to build rapport quickly, and just like you do when you're prospecting. And some are good, some are bad, and some are terrible. So the first one who is terrible that we want to talk about was did an inspection for a very nervous client of ours. Delightful lady, but very nervous, first-time home buyer, and was buying it on her own, a house that needed a lot of updating. And why don't you set the story set it a little bit more?
Okay, yeah, this is awesome. And this is again another one where Greg gets dragged through the mud, or dragged into my mud. So it'll be interesting to see his take on it. But basically what happened was it's a first-time home buyer. She's buying a home. She's on her own, and a little bit nervous about things. So we were really looking to the inspector to show up and, as a good inspector should do, systematically go through the house and describe, the lifespan of the components of the house. Tell us if it's good or bad. And the other thing that was kind of stressful about this situation is we only had 72 hours with our conditions because it was a hot market and we had to get things done fast. We get there, we do the walkthrough, and the next thing you know, or the inspector does the inspection and then he's walking us through and he's supposed to be telling us, the roof's good, the windows are good, the plumbing is good or bad, whatever. He's telling us what condition the home's in. And all he did was say, you don't want to buy this house, pretty lady. And we both stared at him and we were like, okay, why? Can you tell us why? And he's like, this house isn't for you. There are way too many blue jobs in this house. And we had told the inspector that she was buying on her own. And I don't know why that would ever make a bearing. Now, I've never used this inspector before because we were on such a time crunch. My regular guy could not make it there on time. I do have a few people that I use regularly for this exact reason. But anyway, so he starts telling her, there's too many blue jobs. You can't handle this house. Why don't you go buy yourself a cute little condo where you won't have to worry about maintaining your house? I had no
idea what a blue job was.
Yeah, well, either way, we're like, what? And he's like, I'm not even going to get into it. There's just too many blue jobs. And he keeps saying this over and over again. And this is the thing that I'm going to mention. My client was an actual brain scientist, like a neurologist. Like, she was an extremely intelligent person. Her income was great enough that she was buying this really nice house in a very good neighborhood by herself. And, this would be offensive even if that wasn't the case. But
could you explain it for anyone under the age of 50, what it means?
What, blue job?
Yeah.
Pink job? Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know or who hasn't heard these terms, whether we agree with them or not, what they mean is this. Blue jobs are boy jobs and pink jobs are girl jobs. And so what the inspector was implying was that there was too many boy jobs in the house and it would be too much for a gal on her own to handle, essentially. That's what I think he was trying to say. Yeah. So anyway, so he keeps telling her there's too many blue jobs. And we're like, okay, first of all, I've been a realtor and I've renovated and flipped a couple of homes. I understand home systems very well. She's an extremely smart lady. I'm pretty sure that if somebody would have said to her, hey, your roof's good for another 10 years or your plumbing's good for another 5 years or whatever the case of the home was, you got asbestos, you don't, whatever, she could have handled that information. And so at one point, he's literally going through describing the inspection, every point as a blue job or a pink job. And then she yelled at him and said, I'm a brain scientist. I'm capable of processing information. Will you please just tell me what's happening with the house? And we'll be right back. I'm at this point pacing back and forth, making calls to other inspectors to see who I can get in. Keep in mind, we now have 24 hours to get this done. So I'm calling, and finally, and the client really, really liked the home. She's like, I just want to know if I can, if there's something major that's going to go wrong, as most people, want to know in an inspection. Is this going to collapse on me? Is this good? She's getting frustrated. At this point, my client is in a yelling match with the inspector. I am calling frantically other inspectors, can't get anybody in, and then now I call you, and I'm like, Greg, can you get over here? Can you grab a ladder and come over and take a look in the attic and tell us if there's asbestos in the attic and what the plumbing is? Because we were so desperate, and he wouldn't talk to us and he wouldn't describe the inspection to us. And I'm pretty sure he then asked for payment, and him and my client were fighting about not paying for this inspection because we needed to get another inspector in, and it was blowing up. And this is hour 3 of us in the house not getting an inspection.
Yeah, that is what happened.
Yeah.
And how did I get there so quick, though?
Well, it wasn't far from our house. Yeah.
Yeah, so at some point you called me because you didn't think he was going to say any words to a woman.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't saying any words to a woman, yeah.
Yeah, so we happened to live nearby, so I came over.
Mm-hmm.
And, just for reference, I was a general contractor in Victoria for, 10 plus years. And just, been around that. Patricia and I have done home flips as well. So we've got a lot of experience. So I ended up was able to talk to him about it. but he was not good. Like he did a not thorough injection. It was a nice old character house, had a lot of perks to it, and then there was an addition built off the back. And he just said, I've gotten into the attic on the front, but I couldn't find the attic for the back. And there's no actual attic space there. And within,
At which point we all pointed to a hatch above our heads and went, you mean this space right here? Yeah.
And so it was, I don't, if he would have taken it seriously, he would have found it. Like he's not, I'm sure he would have, but he actually just punted on that job, just said, I'll just do a cursory look at it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't go deep on anything. I think that's why he wasn't explaining anything, because he didn't actually go deep on the inspection.
Oh, you think? Well, anyway, he sure made it sound like he just didn't want to. So at this point, you had gone up into the second attic and looked at a few things. And obviously, we don't want clients buying homes with just us frantically taking a look around. Though Greg and I can identify a lot of red flags, we were still wanting to get a legit inspector on the phone. So while some of this was going on and we were looking around, I did get a hold of another inspector, and then we were able to get somebody in like early the next morning to get it done on time. But it was horrific. Like it was awful, the experience.
And yeah, we were luckily able to get a legit inspector in there. I mean, we don't want agents telling people if the house needs work or not. You really want an expert doing that part, obviously. But she ended up buying the house. Right?
Well, yeah, and she was really upset. Well, we were upset at being, spoken down to, but also upset that like this was a home that this person really loved. All of this comes down to like you're dealing with a home that someone loves and they're fighting for it and they're trying to get into the market, and the people around you should be on your side helping you do that. And so it's not, it's not just about, the fact that like this inspector didn't do a good job or he found something. The whole experience was incredibly frustrating. Like it was frustrating to be talked down to that way. By someone who's supposed to show up and do a good job and who's supposed to be a professional. And who wants $500 for the whole experience to top it all off?
Didn't he pulled out a piece of paper, drew a house on it with a sun on the top of the paper, and he was describing how rain will come off the house, and because it was kind of on a slope, so he put the house on a hill. Like it was like a kid drew it. Like he wasn't even just talking down to you guys. He was talking like so down to a 6-year-old level, right? It was
and not in a good explaining kind of way. Yeah, it was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable to be there. The whole thing was really uncomfortable. So I'm glad that you kind of were able to show up and at least get things back on track a little bit and get us to a point where we could figure out a solution for the next day. But I think, one of the things kind of...
Since then, I have gone on, like whenever we start working with a new inspector that we want to recommend to our clients, I'll go on the first one just to see, not because I want to be in the way or anything. I rarely make any comments, just to see how they handle the client. I'm not going in the crawl space. I don't know if they're doing a thorough job, just to see how they talk to people.
Yeah.
And just see if they can take their expertise and give it to a first-time homebuyer who doesn't know, and if they can help them, feel confident about the biggest purchase of their entire life.
Totally, because you need to explain it in a way that the lay person or the person that isn't doing this for a living understands the information. So it has to be simple enough for them to understand it, but it can't be like condescending or like something that they're using as like a way to talk down to people, for sure. I think this also talks to having a list of approved pros. And so obviously in this situation, my approved inspectors, and I do have a list of approved pros. I'm just going to say that right off the bat because like literally we've been on hundreds. I've probably been on, I want to say upwards of 300 or 400 inspections at this stage in my career. Like I've been on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of inspections, which tells you how bad this particular inspection was that it made it.
When was the last one?
It was a while ago. Because my pros know what they're doing. I don't have to go when I know the pros are handling, like you said, handling things well. being good with the clients and being like, it's a good opportunity for the client to have a time with the home with a professional that's there for them without a salesperson there with them as well, right? They can just make an eye-open decision. But I have been on hundreds before that. So when I have a list of approved pros, or when you collect your list of approved pros, they should, that's hard to say, approved pros. Oh man, thanks. They should be vetted by you, and you should know that your clients are in good hands and they're doing a good job for your people. So I think that I know that there's like two kind of ways to go about this. Like some people think that you should not be, that the client should just choose, but there's no way that the client, like what's the client going to do? They're going to go do a Google search, be like, okay, I picked this inspector. They don't know if that person's any good.
Good at marketing.
Yeah, maybe they just somehow came up, on the first page. They don't know who they're choosing, and that whoever comes in and helps them, whoever's backing up their purchase decision, you want to know that they're really, really good, A, at inspections. That's important. But then B, at helping your client understand what they're getting into. Because even though we all live in a house, we don't know the systems of a house, right? Most people don't know what's in an attic.
Some savvy people do. And
some, yeah.
To be able to talk to that client as well as talk to the first-time home buyer.
Yeah.
Because those are very different inspections.
Totally. Right. Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, fair enough. But so don't be afraid to collect a list of approved pros and just say to people, look, if you use these inspectors, I know what you're going to get. You're going to get good quality service. You're going to get like a really good experience, and you're going to get someone who knows what they're doing. And if you do a random Google search, you might get somebody that literally describes houses as blue jobs, pink jobs, and won't even tell you any information. Like that's how varied the experience can be.
That's right. You've already filtered out all the shitty ones for them, right?
Totally. And we've done this with a lot of professionals. So we've done this with lawyers. We've done this with inspectors. We've done this with mortgage brokers. Like at any point in time, another professional, because you need all these people to help your client have a good purchase experience. And if you've got bad ones on either end of that, the experience can go totally soured for no good reason.
Yeah, there is one inspector in town that I like to reference a lot in our meetings who will kill your deal. Like it's a guaranteed. His inspections are so thorough, does not talk about them properly. Every deal that we've used him for, he'll kill that deal. So we don't use him. He's a perfectly good inspector, especially for those character homes. Like we have 100-year-old homes, turn of the century homes here in Victoria, a lot of them. And he's great at those, but it doesn't help anybody. All it does is, pay a bunch of money for an inspector. If you're going to walk away from that deal, guaranteed, like who's that serving? So getting the most thorough inspection and is not always 100% the goal.
Well, getting a thorough inspection is 100% the goal. Like you need to know what you're getting yourself into, but I think I know the person you're talking about, and I think having the reputation of like I'm here to kill it. Again, like if you really love a home, like I've come, we bought homes, right? Like we've bought homes before. And for me, usually by the time that I'm writing an offer and most of our clients, like by the time you're writing an offer, you've got an offer accepted, you've done all the negotiation, you're in it. Like you want this to work out. So like the goal is to get across the finish line and have no red flags or minimum red flags, or have red flags that you're comfortable assuming the risk, right? Like you can deal with along the way. And that's not to say that any houses have no red flags, because there's a lot of houses that, you come across stuff and you're like, oh, I wish, like, I really love this house, but I don't know, there's like too much wrong with it, so I have to walk away. And I've seen people be very, very disappointed in that scenario. But you want the inspector and all the other professionals like going into it, trying to help you achieve your goal, right? So by the time you're like emotionally attached and you love a home, like you want it to work out. You don't want to get a bunch of bad news. Imagine if like at some point the person that's supposed to be helping you understand and navigate that is the person that's like, no, you shouldn't do this. No. How frustrating that would feel. Like that's actually frustrating going somewhere, especially people are savvy. They know if like someone's just like
selling.
Yeah, freaking them out, or if like you're on their side. Because it's like I've had people walk away from inspections crying, being like, but I really love that house. And there's a couple of times where there's been insurmountable things, like a house that's like sort of sliding off a slope on a cliff or something like that, where it's like, no, you cannot fix this.
Very few.
very few, but it has come up
Yeah.
because most things are fixable. A roof is fixable.
We've definitely had like deals that don't go anywhere because, are we rolling again? Yeah. We've definitely had deals that don't go anywhere because there's stuff wrong or it's too big a project for someone.
Sure.
But there's very few things that you just can't move past. Like foundation structural stuff is that. Or,
Sure.
I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of cost, not a matter of run for the hills.
Yeah, totally.
And that's why I get, particularly mad about inspectors that just, make a living killing deals, because you often bring me in just to empower our clients to say, hey, this isn't as scary as this guy made it sound.
Right. Yeah.
It's easy to replace flooring, or I can help you, get you connected with that kind of stuff. I mean, especially in Victoria, where we have, like I've mentioned before, like there's so many character homes here.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are like just tipping on that balance of being, a little bit derelict, but that's where you get great deals. And that's what we always look for, right? The stinkier the house, the better, the dirtier the carpets, the better. That's what we're looking for, because that's where the money is.
Yeah.
And so we like to empower our clients to do that, because otherwise those houses, inspectors keep killing all these deals, they just sit there and then no one can live there, or they get torn down and a new one gets built up and there's all this great like old growth lumber and it's wasteful to just tear down houses. I know the difference between living here in Victoria and living back in Alberta is houses were really only 40 or 50 years old before they're torn down and something new comes up. Here we hold on to a lot of that stuff and I love it.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I think again, it's like most of the time, by the time you're at this stage in the process, you want, like if you're already going and looking at like a fixer upper or something that's in that condition and you've written an offer on it, you have some level of risk that you're willing to take on, or the buyers have some level of risk they're willing to take on. And what they're looking for the inspector to do is explain that risk to them. And I know even, like, I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but even in our city, most inspectors won't quote things for you. They'll tell you what the issues are, but then like you have to go and get your own quotes, which is fine because they're not the ones doing the work. But, most of the time they're just looking for some empowerment, like, what is it going to cost me and what are the likely outcomes of taking this on? Because you're right, most of the properties in this condition are priced below market value. And so if you know the ins and outs of being able to repair some stuff and fix some of the things, then you're probably getting a good deal.
Yeah.
And I think our house is a great example. Like the current place that we live in, it was like kind of slanty, kind of leaning. So we had to jack up one side of the house.
You'd get dizzy walking.
It was like leaning. But before we bought it, the company that did the lift, level lift, they had come out and quoted it. How many times had they been out? Did they tell you?
8 or something?
Yeah, 8 or 9 times. So 8 or 9 buyers had been interested in the home, loved the price point. I mean, it was a great price point, and were afraid of taking on the task of like jacking up the one side of the house.
Yeah, you were the only one foolish enough to buy it.
Yeah, exactly. And it turned out great. So, anyway, so that's the kind of thing you want your inspectors for sure being thorough, telling you the truth about what's happening. And most of them, inspectors are vetted pretty carefully by like the associations and the regulators that regulate them. So, but, you want somebody that's good at explaining it, but giving you the real information so you can make an eyes open decision rather than just scaring you out of stuff because they're maybe just covering their butts or they don't have the experience to know this problem is a huge problem or this problem seems bigger than it is and you can remedy it and make a little money, doing it because you're taking it on. So it's important to have good people. But as a realtor, I'm going to circle back. You need to select these people for your buyers. It's my opinion that you can't just let them, they're going to buy a house. Most people buy a house once every 10 years, maybe 5. They don't know who the best professionals to use are going to be. And if you're not comfortable referring 1 or 2 people, give them a list to choose from, but make sure you've actually vetted them. I've been on hundreds of inspections and I know which inspectors are good at what they do and which ones are going to be your ally in this and which ones are not your allies in it. And had they been talked out of that? So we're just talking with Marian here, and so her parents did that exact thing, right? So they bought a house for an amazing price point, like huge, and they wanted a project. And sometimes I think that's the other thing too, is your inspection can be like a checklist more so, sometimes more than just like, hey, this is what's wrong with the house. Sometimes, like I know for us when we're doing a flip, and I know for Mary and your parents when they were doing their inspection, they just wanted to know what things needed to be tackled, right? So sometimes you can use it as like a checklist for the things you're going to go in and improve about the property structurally. But yeah, like Marion's parents bought the home for a fantastic price, and then they resold it for, triple the value in 7 years. And it made it beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I think, anyway, like all that to say that apparently there is no such thing as blue jobs and pink jobs. And you don't want people that are unnecessarily freaking you out of buying a really good quality property. You want somebody telling you the truth about it so that you can make a good decision about what you're going to do. Okay, so we're just talking to Dan here, and his parents, I think if your parents had gotten blue job, pink job inspector for their inspection, I can just see, I wish they would have, because I think your mom would have put him in his place so fast that it would have been insanity. Like it would have been amazing. So, but yeah, I feel like, so, a couple of points that are just coming up is that, like, people who are good at, tackling projects or doing things around the home, they just want somebody to tell them the reality. Like that's kind of a good point that Dan was bringing up.
The additional sales pitch. I know we've had one inspector who said, "Oh, you should definitely ask for $50,000 off."
Oh yeah, the negotiator inspector.
They don't know what they paid for it. Maybe they're already like they don't know the situation.
Yeah,
they don't know what the offer was. Right? Like, it's not their position to say. I mean, they can definitely say there's $50,000 worth of work here. That's fine, but don't advise them on how to negotiate, because just like you don't want your salesperson in there telling the inspector to just soften, hey, make it a little bit softer, or just ignore the rat problem because I really need this sale, like that. You can't do that, right?
No, you can't. I love that point though, because literally I wrote it down, but I didn't even mention it. Surprises from your professionals, like. Yeah, first of all, so, and this has happened to us a couple of times. It wasn't quite shitty enough to make the shit list, but maybe it should have been, because literally there's been a couple of times where you're in the inspection and the inspector's like, get more money off. And they have no idea what it took to get to the point of getting an offer accepted and getting through the front door. And they have no context of the greater negotiation. Sometimes they didn't even know that we were in multiple offers and that we had beat out like 5 other offers just to get there. And that having the time to do an inspection was a good thing, as opposed to, going in unconditional and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. Make sure. So that's the thing, like, know who you're dealing with. Are you going to be thrown curveballs and your clients be thrown curveballs at the time when it really counts? And now you're focusing on all the wrong things instead of focusing on what you're supposed to be, which is what's the condition of the home, what's the quality of the home, and what's it going to cost me to make the repairs and maintenance and upkeep that I need to do in an older home. So yeah, that's a really good point. Make sure you're not getting the wrong curveballs at the wrong moment.
You could be the best inspector in the world, but if you're, alienating the person in front of you, it might be hard to look past it and wreck the whole experience.
I think the moral of the story is that boys can do girls' jobs, girls can do boys' jobs. There is no such thing as a pink job or a blue job, and never let an inspector tell you otherwise.
Yeah, right. Perfect.